Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness hit theaters yesterday, or it might be 2 days from now once I post this. And yeah, wow, this is another big MCU movie to have come out. Another probably besides No Way Home, the biggest of Phase 4 so far. It has way bigger implications on the overall grand story than No Way Home, but that's for another time, for another even another channel, honestly, to get more into that. But anyways, I was very excited for this movie, but also a little nervous. So if you've been kind of following my track record of the MCU over the past year and a half, you've been noticing that yes, I am liking Phase 4 mostly, but it's been a very B plus kind of phase. So my favorite so far that came out previous to this movie was Shang-Chi. Loved that movie, still love that movie. But other than that, there hasn't been a project that has absolutely grabbed me. I had so much fun with Black Widow. I still think it's a very, very well-made action movie. But again, B+. Yeah, it's really good, but it's not phenomenal. No Way Home. I enjoyed it as a Spider-Man fan. I liked a lot of what I was seeing. Still a little disappointed. Still some really solid B+. WandaVision, I gave it B+. All of the MCU media recently has been really good, but not great. So, coming into Multiverse of Madness, not that I was expecting to give it a B+. I don't ever want to go into a movie pre-grading it or anything like that. But I don't know, this little bit of dread kind of came into my head where, you just kind of liked the first Doctor Strange movie, didn't move you or anything. Current MCU projects haven't been as great as they have been in the past. So what's going to happen? How is Multiverse of Madness going to pan out? And I am very, 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 very happy to tell you guys that I loved Multiverse of Madness. This is up there with some of my favorite MCU movies now. It is one of the most uniquely dark and twisted, but also fun and campy superhero movies I have seen in such a long time. And yes, most of that has to do with Sam Raimi directing this. I'm a huge Sam Raimi guy. I love the original trilogy of Spider-Man movies. Even Spider-Man 3, I will defend that movie more often than not. I love the Evil Dead series. Most things that he's a part of, I really do enjoy. And I feel like he was the absolute perfect fit for this kind of story. His imprints are all over this movie. His vision is very clearly in this movie. And this is one of the most unique MCU movies to come out in a while. And it's not just great because it's unique. It's well written. It's very well directed. It's messy in the best kind of way. It's not messy where in an Eternals way, where it's kind of all over the place and very sporadic and doesn't really know what it wants to be. This movie very much knows what kind of movie it wants to be, and that is just being batshit insane and turning the craziness and the darkness almost up to 11. And I don't mean darkness in bleak, in a bleak kind of way like the Batman. I love the Batman. Obviously, that's probably my favorite movie of the year so far. Phenomenal film, but that's not the same kind of darkness that Multiverse of Madness has. It's fun, it's goofy, but it's also twisted and very horror-inspired. You can feel the horror inspirations and the horror tinges in this movie that are just seeping through it. And there were so many moments where I was just shocked, genuinely shocked. I have not been this kind of awestruck from just the balls on an MCU movie since Infinity War, because of the amount of directions that this movie goes in, the amount of twists and turns it has, cameos and deaths and violence and just everything that the MCU is not really known for. This movie has, and it honestly is so refreshing to see that. And I love Doctor Strange as a character. I think Benedict Cumberbatch is perfect in the role. Again, and I like the first Doctor Strange movie. It's not one of my favorites just because of the not-so-great villain and the story being a little leaning too much into the origin kind of arc. But I still like that movie. It's still a lot of fun. And easily the best part of that is Doctor Strange, and he's been phenomenal in every other movie that he's made an appearance in, and I was just kind of waiting for him to have his own moment in the sun, and this movie is that. It represents his character so well. It represents the multiverse in just the best way possible. The way that they explain it and the way that they go about using that as a storytelling tool is really, really phenomenal. I was kind of worried that I was going to get a little sick of these multiverse movies just because there have been three huge movies that have kind of covered that. No Way Home, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and now Multiverse of Madness. So, I mean, it's a topic that has been covered a lot recently, but I don't think I'm ever really going to get sick. I'm not currently sick of it just because I love the craziness and the just kind of unworldliness of it. How much it can throw a wrench into a certain script, how much it can really make you think as an audience. And I don't know, I don't want to go down that road of, oh, it makes you think it's deep, because that isn't necessarily the case, but I just love the absolute insanity and mind trip that it usually entails. I had to stop there for a second because my mind is just going a million miles an hour, because this movie throws you off in the best way possible. It kind of, with MCU movies, you're expecting a certain tone, you're expecting a certain I don't know, a certain story beats to be hit, and they're hit in this movie, but in such an unconventional way, in such a Sam Raimi way, that it just works so well. I've always said my favorite MCU movies are the ones that try something different, that kind of differentiate themselves from the mold. Because yes, not all of them hit it out of the park. Like Eternals was very different and a very different vibe than what Marvel is known for, but at least it was interesting. I mean, at least it gave us something new. I have a lot of issues with that movie. I don't think I ever covered it on this channel, but I did review it on my Letterboxd. What I was trying to say there is that movies like Iron Man 3, like Thor Ragnarok, like the first Guardians of the Galaxy, like Infinity War, those are my favorite because they took huge risks and knocked it out of the park. And that's exactly what this movie did. It didn't have to be this wonderfully campy and dark. It didn't have to be this violent and go the places that it went. It didn't have to be this mind-bending and but also a good character study, and have Wanda, who was a phenomenal antagonist. Again, I really liked WandaVision, but I was a little disappointed by the way it concluded, like most people, how they feel about that show. But it kind of makes that conclusion a little better because of how well it sets up this movie, and how her arc is completed is very satisfying and is very much what I wanted from that character. Because Scarlet Witch in WandaVision throughout most of the runtime became one of my favorite MCU characters, and she absolutely was phenomenal in this movie. And Elizabeth Olsen was great in this thing. It's just so much of this movie is exactly what I want out of Marvel movies now. I want them to take risks. I want them to try new things and give directors, but let them make the movies they want to make. So much of my issues with earlier MCU films is they kind of follow the same mold. The directors are very stand-in, are very following what Jon Favreau did with the first Iron Man movie, which, props to Jon Favreau. I love Jon Favreau. He made a very good movie with the first Iron Man film. But I feel like a lot of people since then were just doing the same thing. And then once the Avengers came out, they were just copying Joss Whedon and so on and so on. So to see this newer crop of Marvel movies, at least some of them, like Shang-Chi and this movie, and Thor Ragnarok from almost 5 years ago. Wow, that's insane. But with Thor Ragnarok, letting the director have their own vision and make the movie that they want to make really, I think, solidifies Marvel going in the right direction. Marvel letting the reins kind of loosen a little bit and letting filmmakers make the movie they want to make. And I think this movie is the best example of that so far. Sam Raimi took this Doctor Strange story and made it his own, and really made a phenomenal final product. And it kind of pains me to say my negatives with this thing, just because they seem so insignificant to just how much fun and how well made this movie was, and just how much I fucking enjoyed Multiverse of Madness. This is way up there with some of my favorite MCU movies. It's now one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. It was that good. But I did have some issues with it. I would be lying if I said it was flawless, because it wasn't. My main issue is that America felt more like a MacGuffin rather than an actual character. Her actress was fine. She was good. But I felt like her as a character wasn't utilized the best. She was just the MacGuffin in this story and wasn't given any other personality outside of that. She was given one scene towards the beginning of the movie, and which was fine. Like I thought they set her up kind of well, but in the end, her character felt a little more like a afterthought, and like, oh yeah, she's actually the most important part of the plot, but she's not a full developed character. And that's a little unfair because we have so many great characters that have been built up through movie after movie after movie. And I would like to see America get her own story, maybe a show on Disney Plus, or even her own movie. I would like to see that, but in this film, she is a little underutilized. And the usual Marvel quippiness and the one-liners stuck out a lot more in this movie because it didn't fit the tone whatsoever. It did not. It felt out of place. I'll say that. Wow. So I don't know, I'm very pumped up. I'm very running on a lot of adrenaline because it is pretty late. But Multiverse of Madness, please go see this movie. Please support this Marvel film, because I know a lot of people are going to see it and say, that was weird. I didn't love that. But I absolutely adored this thing. And I'm going to give the Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness a very, very strong A-. It's that close to being an A. I mean, like a hair. Maybe one less Marvel quip away from being an A. But for now, it's a very, very strong A-. That could change when I see it again. But as is, very strong A-. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I hope you guys liked it. I said in the last video I have a roundup review that I'm kind of working on, and then yeah, we'll see where it goes from then. I also have a very big thing planned for my 100th video, which is coming up, which is pretty crazy at this point that it's almost already been 100 videos. But yeah, other than that, I will see you guys later.